Hello YouTube, welcome to a State of the Games video for Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen November 2014. Both games have seen their fair share of updates as well as controversy over the last month. So let's dig right into Elite Dangerous. Elite Dangerous saw the release of Beta 3, which introduced player introductions and mining. See my other videos on those topics. However, the controversy stems from the announcement of a release date of the 16th of December, and then an assumption that Gamma was going to begin about the 22nd of November, but this past week there was another newsletter which detailed out very little in terms of any new functions, features that would be added, and that there would be a Beta 3.9 release on Thursday, this November 20th, so I guess this Thursday. And that's left some of the community a little bit miffed that they're claiming that the game needs another 6 months to a year of development, that it's an empty house still, that there's nothing to do, they've done everything there is to do. And my kind of take on that is to, hold off just a second here, because up until this point, we haven't exactly been doing the traditional vertical slice method of testing, but it's been very similar to where we've been testing specific subsets of the game. And if you go back and reread the patch notes to Beta 1, Beta 2 in particular, when they're these 60, 70,000 character walls of text, one of the things that you'll discover is there's a lot more features in Engine that I'm sure that they've been working on in their internal builds that we, the community, just haven't had access to. And people's like, well, they're not going to, deliver untested features on launch or for Gamma and things like that. So, well, actually, if you read through what David Braben has been saying, he's pretty much been saying, well, we're going to hold some things back for release and for Gamma. For Gamma and then even into release. So, no, you won't be seeing everything until the 16th of December. Why should we ship everything under the sun that we have now? And whenever we have all these other features here, I'm going to bet that they're probably features they've been testing internally for quite some time and they're satisfied with how they work. I think the things we've been testing more and less as a community has been things that they need information on, like the economy. They needed to see how people were actually going to trade, to see if what they thought how things would work on paper mirrored reality in any shape, way, or form. Or maybe that they were waiting for people to do the trading and then determine some of their economic indicators and things of that nature. I think they wanted to see how people would fly combat missions, bulletin board missions, and certain aspects of those needed to be tested out and fleshed out considerably. And the only way to do so is to get it into the hands of thousands of players, let them work through the hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of permutations, and get a lot of those things. I mean, stuff like the reputation system. You can start to see your reputation, but it's not having an effect right now. You can't really change your indication with various factions as of this moment, so it's not exactly turned on. And I think the single biggest gripe has been the difficulty some folks have been having in getting together into multiplayer instances, either on private play or public or an open play, to group up with their friends, and the lack of grouping mechanics. I think those are things that are coming and that are to be addressed, because there's been indications that those features have been being worked on, at least within the patch notes. If you go back and reread some of those walls of text, and I'm not going to pretend that I did read through it all, but that it all sunk in. So there's probably even some features there that I missed on the past two, the couple of read-throughs that I did of the materials. So that's been Elite Dangerous this past month. Let's talk a little bit about Star Citizen, where they saw one major update and then another minor update, which I've yet to play, and that is version 0.9.2 and then 0.9.2.1. The basic things here is they've added in a new aiming mechanic that introduced a lag pip instead of leading target indicators. It does make it considerably easier to hit targets for HOTAS users now. I think it does. If it hasn't balanced out controllers, absolutely. It's certainly been a massive step in the right direction. I still think aiming needs a couple of more iterative passes. The color scheme needs to be revisited. It should probably be that monochrome green color that the Air Force and Navy uses on real-life aircraft and also commercial airliners, instead of that blue that blends into the background of Broken Moon. as I play around here on Dying Star. They've added in now the entire 300 series as of 0.9.2.1. So the 300i, the 315p, the 325A, and the 350R are now all flyable. And I have owned all of those ships at one point or another. I currently do not have a 315p in inventory, so what its differences really are like, I have no idea at this point. However, with the changes to the targeting module, we still don't have a clear idea of how the targeting computer aspect of the game is going to really function. I mean, the Willis Ops targeting computer that's on the 325A, as of right now, is still not really doing very much. I believe I'm flying a 325A here. However, with the expansion size of the maps, ships like the M50, the 350R can certainly exploit their speed for boom and zoom runs. The biggest thing that I would like to see is the pips, I think, are too small. They should be at least enlarged by 50%, if not double their current size. I know some people will say, well, that'll make it too easy for aiming, but I think that will probably balance out if you give auto-aim or auto-correct or auto-convergence, whatever you want to call it, within a pip that was about twice the size it currently is. I think things would feel pretty well, and I think that you would see then controls and such balanced out. The major thing from a flight controls and mechanics perspective that I'm really waiting to see, and I hope they have situated out for version 1, is to dial back the maneuvering thrusters compared to your main linear thrusters. Once people start yawing, pitching, and rolling slower, then they can go fast or go in a forward linear direction. The flight characteristics of all of these ships are going to change somewhat, and we're going to finally have an idea of, I think, what it's going to be like to fly in the persistent universe. Probably the worst case scenario is going to be that the ships are going to drift a little bit more. Interestingly enough, this time last year, apparently Elite Dangerous had flight mechanics very close to how Arena Commander performs now. And they ended up scrapping those flight mechanics and nerfing the hell out of yaw in that game because they felt that it delivered a much better gaming experience. And that's the reason why they did that. It'll be interesting to see if CIG ultimately arrives at the same conclusion that Elite did about a year ago. But maybe not. This might be the order of combat that CIG has been seeking. If so, if they just enlarge those pips to make it just slightly easier to hit your targets, I think that finally I can call control schemes pretty well balanced. And if they add in the targeting computer mechanics so that you can slave your gimbaled weapons, let's say on a 325A, to be automatically targeted. You know, you still have to probably get your target within, and they did introduce a target focus mode where you have to put the target within kind of a lead indicator, and I shouldn't say lead indicator so much as just a box, and if you do that, your gimbaled weapons will start hitting. So that's one of those things that they've certainly embarked down the right path now. This is the version of Arena Commander that I felt or was expecting 5 months ago, 6 months ago, back in June. This is what I thought Arena Commander would be back when we got version 0.8, and it wasn't. And this was pretty much what I was looking for. So, yeah, it still needs a couple more iterative passes and some things. Colors of HUD elements need to be changed from blue to something else. That being said, all the ships we've seen concept art out there for different HUDs. For each ship's going to have a slightly different HUD display. That's coming. I don't know if it'll be there for version 1.0. And there's trying to get version 1 out for the end of the year, but given their past ability to meet, delivery dates, I'm going to assume it'll be out sometime between the end of 2014 and July of 2015. So the next big controversy that I think I'm going to remark on, and I have a little bit more of an opinion on, was the issues revolving around the Redeemer's LTI cell. The Redeemer was put up on the store for $265, and some people started to complain. They're like, well, for these stats, it's not worth as much as a Constellation, which is $225 for a standalone ship. I think that's for the Andromeda now. I know that's what the old ship was when it was just the Constellation before they introduced variants. You know, so why should I buy a Redeemer over an Andromeda or a constellation. And they have a specific point here, because if I looked at the Redeemer on paper from the Next Great Starship, this was the fan competition run this time last year throughout early spring, and it was a fan-designed ship. I always thought that its price point and size and weapons loadout and things of that nature were going to put it somewhere between a Freelancer and a Constellation. So let's just kind of call it a $165 ship that they put on sale for $265 ship. How they arrived at that $265 number, I'm not sure, but I think they need to go back and look at their pricing criteria, because I think ultimately that's where they goofed. But this isn't the first time ships have had controversial stat changes on the stats page. Look at the Gladiator, for an example. It became so small at one point, it was almost the size of an Aurora, it seemed like, and I was like, huh? And then they went back and went, no, it's going to be the same size of a Hornet. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. And then the weights and other things. The stats page is just a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't really mean much at this point. I mean, what's the difference between a TR3 and a TR4 main engine? Is a TR4 100% more thrust? Is it 50% more thrust? Or is it 5% more thrust? We don't know. I don't even think CIG knows. We don't have any really hard numbers that you can compare one engine against another in any direct comparison, other than to say a TR4 is probably going to be bigger and deliver more power and thrust than a TR3. We just don't know how much more. So those are some things to keep in mind there. However, CIG's response to this was, we're going to add more guns to the Redeemer. And previously, the responses to the Cutlass controversies, the Avenger controversies, and things like that have been, whoa, guys, let's wait for it to be in engine, whether it be Arena Commander 1 or Arena Commander 2. Let us go through, do a couple balancing passes on it, and then if we need to address things like base stats changes, we'll do so at that time. If the ship's not flying its intended role, we'll make changes, add better armor, bigger shields, bigger guns, smaller guns, whatever needs to be done to bring it into balance. Well, this time around, they said, okay, well, we're just going to add more guns. And that starts to, cower to the will of the basically squeaky wheel, if you will. Gets the grease. And that leaves things to kind of be open to manipulation by certain groups of the player base. And I mean, this comes out of the fact that there's not an inconsequential number of backers who are not backing the game at this point. They're buying ships based on stats on the stats page to give them some sort of perceived advantage going into day one of the persistent universe. The idea of if I can haul 5,000 freight units of cargo and you can only haul 50, I'm going to have an advantage. And if I spend the $500 now to do so, I'm going to have a huge advantage over you come persistent universe. Which, unless they do something drastic or just really everybody earns gobs and gobs of credits, there's a valid point to be made there. That's usually what happens in MMOs, anybody who's played any significant number of MMOs early on. So that's kind of been the state of the games the past month. We'll be doing another one of these in December. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. I will try to get back to doing some more regular videos after this week. Holiday schedule starts to kind of come into impact, and it becomes the end of the year. And nothing realistically in either of the projects I'm working on right now, work-wise, we're basically, after Thanksgiving, shut down for the rest of the year. So I'll be having a little bit of time to get things done. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.